It's time for our Anemo Archon to make a comeback. And that's going to be the whole point of today's video, with us talking a little bit about Venti and discussing whether or not he is still going to be a worth it character for you guys to think about, because I think he's an interesting character, one of the most unique kit in the game with, you know, very special crowd control ability. So yes, he does have his own charm, and hopefully with the video it will help you make a better decision. So guys, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to support me and not miss out on my future Genshin videos. With that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Durin, as well as so many other amazing Not Cry character, is going to be coming soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. And for those who are going for the highest package when topping up, there's also a limited discount options available once every version. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. So Venti, ever since he was released up until this point, was a pretty captivating character in 1.0, right? Back when I started playing Genshin Impact, just gotten into the game, at first I didn't really want to pull for Venti because I was more into, you know, the cast of female charming characters, especially my lovely Kuching. But then, while Hoyoverse decided to give us a trial, I went inside, test Venti, and holy freaking cow, you know, they know what they were selling, popping up a whole bunch of slime on the field and casting his elemental burst, just literally group them in mid-air together and deleting all the freaking slime. So there you go, most of us were hooked back in 1.0 trying to pull for Venti. So yeah, he was all the way back then. Which of course, the earlier days, there were many situations where you needed grouping because there were a lot more smaller enemies. But as the game goes on, larger bosses enemies started to appear. And with that, Venti actually loses the majority of his main supportive capability, because while with 4P's Viridescent is technically the only other things that he mostly focusing on supporting you. And while most of the other Anemo supportive characters can do that, especially Sucrose, who give you a freaking ton of EM, and Kazuha, who also gets a bit of crowd control whenever it is needed, also providing you a pretty good elemental damage bonus as well as 4-piece Viridescent, making Sucrose and Kazuha a lot better than Venti himself. And yeah, I think many of you know the rest of the story, with Venti being kicked back into the garage, being forgotten almost up until this point when Hoyoverse decided to, hey, it's time to dig him back up. No more alcohol for you. And there you go, he is getting the buff. So what kind of buff he is getting, we'll just go through quickly because I'm sure many of us already know about this. But technically he is more toward a DPS powering side after the buff, because now his normal attack is going to be converted into Anemo and also has the ability to pierce through your enemies, while also his elemental burst is going to be doing more damage as well as having more uptime, provided that he is being used in the Hexarray team, which is, you know, the whole point for this buffing from Hoyoverse. However, the other biggest thing is going to be him providing an extra 50% damage increase for the active character that triggers Sword reaction. And of course, whenever Venti is on the team, it is going to be a guaranteed, because you're constantly going to be triggering Sword. So yes, he is still a decent off-field supportive character for you, while being an Anemo DPS character if you want to. But that being said though, the biggest thing that we have been looking into, especially when he is on the supportive side, is how good is his crowd controlling from his elemental burst is going to be. Is it going to get buffed so he can pull more heavier enemies, which we did heard that he is going to be getting a slight buff toward this, and he will be able to pull more heavier enemies in. But even if it is, definitely he won't be able to pull in, you know, the larger bosses enemies, which is the thing that is happening in many of the endgame content. You know, the Abyss, Stygian Onslaught, all of those things have larger bosses enemies. So unless Hoyoverse actually decide to put more group situation, I don't think the crowd control ability is still going to be that much of it worth it. And technically it is more just going to be toward him being the Anemo DPS character. And while obviously after the buff he is going to be a pretty decent Anemo DPS, though of course you're still going to be needing to invest quite a bit into him. You're having a good decent DPS bow, and then his team comp building is still rather going to be decent, especially with the fact that you do need to take note that Hexarray team is going to be rather important whenever you are trying to use for Venti. So obviously top of the line Venti DPS team is still going to require you to invest quite a lot, which, you know, I discussed a little bit about some updated Venti team building in some of my other video. But one of the better team that he's going to be in, if you don't really care too much about healing, is going to be Venti Duran Furina and a Farazan at a C6 level, one of the most invested Venti DPS team. While technically overall some of his Anemo team is still going to be able to be used on some of the other Anemo DPS characters as well. So it's just going to be replacing Venti as an Anemo DPS character. Though yes, this team doesn't have a healer, but it is going to be doing you a freaking ton of damage, both having sub DPS character Duran and Furina doing the job for you, while Venti on the field doing his Anemo damage with Farazan buffing his personal damage. Other potential team like, you know, Venti, Mona, Bennett and a Farazan. If you do have a Duran, then you can swap in Mona's place where you have a Venti, Duran, Bennett and Farazan kind of teams. This two teams should technically be quite close in power because Mona also recently had a buff and she's now going to be able to help your team deal quite decent damage. So obviously the Mona team is going to be a little bit more free to play friendly, but if you've already got a Duran, then you can also think about having a Duran on that specific team. Though there obviously are some other Venti teams that we can possibly build around, but I'm not going to be going too in depth. But as we can see, if you want to use more of him into a free to play friendly team, you can, but overall for any Anemo DPS character, you always want to have at least a Farazan on your account. So you can use Farazan at a C0 level, but we all know that we would love to have a C6 Farazan on especially an Anemo DPS kind of team, because that is an insanely huge difference whenever you are investing into one. So that being said though, even though he's now capable of doing Anemo damage and he is pretty decent at it, at the end of the day, there are still quite a couple of other Anemo DPS character that is already available in the game, and that's, you know, Shao, Wanderer, Chaska, those kind of character. And honestly speaking, I still have to say that they do decent damage. The only most important thing for these kind of character are the team building around them, because Anemo character, they rely on their personal damage a lot, which is why we all have been saying a C6 Farazan has always been so important. And also off-field sub DPS character Furina, and now, you know, potentially Duran is also going to be available to help the Anemo DPSs out. So Venti is still going to be in the competition, and I would just have to say he is more still a preference character if you want to actually invest into a DPS Venti. Even though if he is used on the right team, I'm pretty sure he's going to be roughly around 15 to 20% better than the other Anemo DPS character because of the Hexarray kind of buff and team that he has access to. But hey, is he going to be meta defining and save your account if you decide to pull for him at this point at the C0 level? I don't really think so. And yeah, if you like him, you can play around with him, but for many of the account out there, especially for those of you who are free to play, it's still going to be a tough decision. So that's going to be on you guys who don't have Venti. But what if you already have Venti and you are looking into increasing him for his constellation? Venti C1, I think it's an okay DPS stacking for him. Basically, if you want more damage, C1 is okay. The C2 is pretty decent. Obviously, you get the Anemo resistant shred and physical, which is not really needed at this point. And other than that, he's also going to be able to deal more damage. So yeah, another damage stacking onto your Venti. C3 allows him to do more burst damage. C4 just basically allow your team to have more Anemo damage bonus. C5, his E skill increase, and yeah, C6 is even more resistant threat to Anemo and also the elemental that is involved in the Azure reactions. As well, you get more crit damage bonus. So basically C6 is actually pretty good, but hey, how many of us are actually going to be having a C6 Venti? Right, overall I think his constellation value is just okay. Honestly speaking guys, I would still just recommend you that if you are thinking about Venti constellation, guys, just go ahead and look into your sub DPS supportive character constellation. You know, like for example Durin. If you are really invested into Venti's team, you know, like Furina constellations, Shalonen's constellations, those kind of character, and their value is still going to be a lot more because they are still going to be used in Venti's team depending on which kind of team you are building for him. So overall guys, what I think about Venti after the buff is that if you already have Venti on your account, yes, it is a nice buff and it does open up more kind of gameplay style for the character that you have available on your account. I already have Venti on my account. I will be testing him out just like many other account who has Venti. But if you don't have Venti, it's more toward whether or not you like him or not, and it's not going to be too much of a meta defining character or anything. It's just great that Hoyoverse is taking a look back into the 1.0 of character and decide to give them a buff so that it was actually worth it for us to pull ever since back then. But if you haven't got Venti, guys, just probably save your Primo Gems for, you know, Columbina and future Not Cry character, and I'm pretty sure it's going to do you a lot better. Unless you love Venti and you want to invest into him, I really do wish you good luck, and hopefully you guys win the 50-50. And while if you're looking more into your account investment and think about topping up, don't forget to check out Loot Bar, as usually they really have good deals and they will help you out quite a lot. Guys, that's all I have to say regarding Venti. If you do have any question, leave down in the comment section and I or some other lovely Genshin players will get to you there. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future videos. With that, I wish you a super day and I'll catch you on my next video.